Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. It's really my pleasure. This is, it used to be that the Italy Symposium was the last symposium of the season. And now with the Brazilian and the South American market kind of growing for Liferay, I have one more trip after this. And then I thought I would be done. And then Eddie Duke, our marketing manager, told me, no, we have to go to Middle East this year. So now I actually have two more to go after this one. But I'm always happy to be here in Italy and to see old faces as well as to meet new people. So thank you for your time and your attention to Liferay these last couple of days. Before I begin, I know that for those of you who have joined us for past symposiums, you know that SMC has been a very special partner for Liferay in this market, and they've invested a lot in growing the Liferay market in not only the marketing and the business side, but also in the technology side. Many of the marketplace plugins and a lot of community contributions in the Italian community have come through SMC, whether it's Pier Paolo or Mauro Mariuzzo. And so I wanted to invite Marco Tessarin, who's the CEO of SMC, just to come up and say a few words and to say a welcome to all of you in Italian.
Grazie Bryan, anche da parte mia un saluto, un ringraziamento a tutti. Siamo onorati anche quest'anno di essere main sponsor di questo evento. È il 7° anno, un po' di emozione c'è, il bambino sta crescendo sempre di più e vi assicuriamo una cosa, volevo trasferirvi il cuore di questi momenti, di questo evento. Il cuore è che in tutti questi anni abbiamo cercato di fare dei buoni eventi, tecnicamente parlando, dal punto di vista applicativo parlando. Sì, questo ci abbiamo provato. Ci abbiamo però anche provato a rendere queste giornate delle giornate in cui si creasse un rapporto anche di collaborazione, vicinanza, amicizia, come diceva prima Andrea, tra clienti, aziende, professionisti. Ecco. E quest'anno la DXP, che pone al centro le persone, ci sembra una tappa speciale veramente, perché mi sembra che porre al centro le persone e l'attenzione che abbiamo avuto in tutti questi anni sia un momento di convergenza, una particolare convergenza, dove riusciamo e possiamo mettere assieme aspetti tecnologici e aspetti anche sociali, collaborativi, umani. Ci crediamo molto, ci crediamo e l'abbiamo sperimentato attraverso Bryan, l'amicizia che mi ha onorato di avere in tutti questi anni. Ci crediamo molto in tante persone che sono qui dentro e almeno un po' vorremmo riuscire a farlo anche quest'oggi. Allora grazie, buona giornata, grazie a Liferay, grazie Bryan della tua presenza.
Thanks, Marco. Okay, so this morning I wanted to talk to you all about digital transformation, and I will be the very first person to admit that this is a buzzword. And many of you here are more part of the technical side of the Liferay ecosystem in Italy, and so I'm very happy that you're here, and hopefully I'll have something interesting for you to say. On the business side, I'm sure you're hearing a lot about digital transformation. All of the big companies, all of the small companies are saying we need to do digital transformation. Well, there's just so much noise out there about transformation. It's the sort of thing that people are going to take any topic and say, digital transformation, right? Maybe the US needs a digital transformation because all of their polling technology is out of date. Who knows? But as I've been thinking about this topic for the last 12 to 18 months, I really wanted to get at what is the most important thing when we're talking about digital transformation. And that's what I wanted to share. And then talk about what are some of the things that hold us back from that. And then finally, how does Liferay technology and technology in general change in light of digital transformation. So if you remember, last year I talked about how transformation is much more than just e-commerce. But if you look at e-commerce in the US, it's a pretty good indication both of how important and significant transformation is and how much more room there is for growth. Last year, I used these two slides just to show that we've grown a lot in the last 15 years, and yet we still have a lot more room to grow. That yellow part is all of the non-electronic commerce retail that still happens in the US, and we're only talking about e-commerce versus regular commerce, not even all of digital transformation, right? So digital transformation is a very hot topic. For some of us, especially on the business side, it might be something very scary, right? Many of us hear about how other companies are going through this process and they're taking a lot of risks. I saw this headline last week about the New York Times. They had their third quarter earnings report, and I think in the past they had maybe like 100 million in ad revenue, and that reduced down by 90%. Because they're focusing their energy not so much on their print business, but on their digital subscriptions. And the new CEO of the New York Times is very, very dedicated to making his company a digital company. But that has meant that they've had to give up the revenue that they have today in order to set their business up for success in the future. And interestingly, the response from the stock market was that the share price went up 2%. So it can be a scary thing. Now, if you're on the tech side of the house this morning, you may think about primarily the cool technology, right? You may have remembered my talk last year when I talked about how drones are transforming the agriculture business. You may have seen demos where people are using Bluetooth beacons and things like that to change the retail experience. And it seems like, hey, we have all these cool new toys that we get to play with. Another significant thing, if you're a technologist, is that I think transformation means that we're going to see a real change in the attitude that the business has toward your role in the company and how they want to use your expertise. I found this quote in another article about the company Unilever. I think you know that they have a lot of soaps, detergents, cleaners, so many different products that probably all of you have in your house is created and distributed by Unilever. And one of their directors of IT said that in their company, they used to always get CIOs from procurement or finance or from the supply chain side. And what that tells me is that they saw information technology as a cost that they need to control. We want to spend as little as possible to do just the things that are necessary to run the business. It was an operational concern. But now he's talking about that IT is allowing them to do things that they've never been able to do before. It's an enabler, not just a cost. And when the business people are making strategic decisions, they're actually inviting the IT people to be at the table with them. So if you're a technologist in the room today, digital transformation may mean that your CEO or your chief marketing officer might be emailing you or giving you a call saying, I really need you to tell us how technology is going to help us create these new business models and this new strategy. Okay, so at Liferay, we've been trying to define the meaning of digital transformation, and we're trying to help other people understand it too. And for that, we created a set of pages on the web that talk about these digital topics. And I took some text from that just to show how hard it is to explain what digital transformation is. There's a lot of words there. I don't expect you to read it. But when I tried to really distill it down to the essence of what matters, I came up with this. Digital transformation is a business or an organization using technology to get better at giving customers what they want. That's really simple, right? And yet, I think in this statement there is a lot of layers and a lot of nuance and a lot of power. We might think that technology should always be giving customers what they want, but it's not actually true. A lot of times technology is just sitting there and companies are not using it, or sometimes technology is actually used to hinder giving customers what they want. So just in case you're more of a visuals person than a words person, I made a little diagram. There's usually what your company is giving to your customers and what they really, really want, right? And there's a gap there, and technology helps you bridge that gap. Now, there are a lot of hindrances to having the circle move to the right, and I wanted to go over some of those. Well, this is a technology conference, and one of the promises that Liferay makes as a vendor is that our technology will help you give your customers a better experience, right? That's a big promise. Now, your customer, as depicted by this diagram, they probably have very, very, very high expectations. All the more so as we develop as a society. Before the iPhone, before the Android, we never expected that technology would be so easy to use. We never expected that companies would be able to send us our boarding passes right into our hands, or allow us to send money payments with the swipe of a finger. But now this is just part of our daily lives, and so now we have these huge expectations, right? And a lot of times, your product or your offering is hindered by outdated technology in reaching those expectations. Well, this may be the situation in your company, and one of the things your company might be talking about is, what if one of our competitors comes in with something much better to meet those expectations, to scale that mountain faster than we can? And while this is often a question of technology, I want to make the argument that actually, a lot of times it's more about a state of mind, and it's more actually about a business model rather than the technology itself. One of the very overused examples of transformation is Netflix. And this company that nobody remembers anymore, that I'll tell my grandchildren about when they ask me, Granddad, what was life like back in the day? We had to walk to the store, and there were all these DVDs, and we would have to pick one off the shelf. They'll be like, that's crazy. I just watch it in my irises, in my digital implant. So you all remember Blockbuster, and Netflix came in and they provided video on demand as a more convenient way to access entertainment. But the reality is, actually before they did the video on demand, they actually just transformed the business model itself. How did they do that? First of all, they had the mail DVDs, right? And mail is actually less convenient than going to the store, because it's 7:30 p.m., you don't feel like going out, you want to watch a movie. If you order that online and it shows up the next day, well, that's not really helping you, right? So you're going to go to a store, pick up the DVD. Well, what Netflix did in the US, they worked with the US Post Office, and they said, hey, let's make an agreement that if you're getting these Netflix red envelopes, you're going to make sure it gets delivered by the next day. And they had some kind of a business arrangement for that. So they were really able to minimize the competitive disadvantage they had against Blockbuster. Now, over time, they were able to create video on demand, and of course, that completely changed the industry in so many ways. Sometimes the barriers are not technological, but they're actually cultural, or they're political, or there are regulations that prevent your product from fulfilling those customer expectations. I've given this talk in a couple of different countries, in France and in the UK, and in both places they were really surprised that in the US, I can actually take my mobile phone and I can get a check, and I can take a picture of the check, the front and the back, and then I hit submit, and my bank will actually cash the check for me. Now, in some ways, Europe is actually more advanced than the US, because I don't think people use checks that often here. They just do the transfers online. and you have a PIN code that gets delivered to your mobile app, and so that's very convenient as well, right? So on the off chance that sometimes you need to get a check, probably you have to walk it down to the bank and hand it over. So in the UK, as well as in France, we're hoping that this will change. One of the ways that change comes is through the law. In the UK, they passed a bill called the Small Business Enterprise and Employment Bill that said now it's okay to submit an image of the check rather than the physical copy in order to deposit the check, right? So obviously the technology is here, even the cultural willingness of the people is here, but in this case, it was really the regulations that prevented this transformation from happening. Now, I'm gonna get to my most controversial point, which is sometimes I think our companies actually don't want to give people the best customer experience. And this is because having a proprietary advantage that keeps those circles apart, where what the customer gets is very much less than what the customer wants, this is actually the business model keeping that gap. I think one of the best examples of this is in the cable industry. Now, there was a company in France, a cable company called Canal+, and they had for a very long time the rights to broadcast British football matches. And recently, another competitor called Altice, they actually bought those rights away from them for 100 million euros. And the reason why Canal+ was so upset about this is because they justified their high prices by pointing to the exclusive content that they had. They said, hey, there's nowhere else in the world you can watch these UK football matches than on our cable channels. So we're gonna charge you 50 euros a month or whatever, right? I think cable companies are probably the same all over the world. They have some kind of a monthly fee. They give you all these channels that you don't really want, you know, like the fishing channel and the cooking channel and the, I don't know, maybe the embroidery stitching channel. And really you just want to watch that one or two channels, but you have to buy it all, right? So this is kind of a bad customer experience, but you can't do anything about it because there's no other access to that content. Well, a lot of times technology is going to enable either your direct competitors or people you didn't think were your competitors to change that. And I think this is the case in the cable industry as well. So in the US, one of the famous channels that provides content is HBO. They made shows like Game of Thrones, The Sopranos. You know, I understand that these shows are popular in other parts of the world. I'm a strange American because I never watched these TV shows at all. But this is what I hear about. And what HBO said was, you know what? Our customers don't want to have to buy these very, very expensive cable subscriptions anymore. They just want to watch the shows on HBO. And so we're going to let them do that on the internet for $15 a month, right? Which is a lot cheaper than what they have to pay to Time Warner or Comcast or whatever. So now, like, the cable companies are like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We built this wall and said that only people can get the content through us, but now that advantage is going away. Okay, so a lot of change, a lot of crisis, a lot of opportunity. Your companies, your organizations are either starting to think or have been thinking about how they're going to live up to these challenges and turn them into opportunity. Liferay, we are a vendor of technology. We are an open source community. We're seeing these trends and we're realizing that we can no longer think of technology by itself. We have to really think about how technology and business are coming together to solve these much, much bigger problems than we've had to solve in the past. And this is a reality we're also just facing in our own business. We've been talking about digital transformation in your industries, but in the enterprise software market, this technology transformation is already happening as well. We've been very, very fortunate to be recognized in this very, very small part of the technology market called the portal market for the last, I think, 10 years, Gartner is this famous US analyst firm, and they make this one picture that makes or breaks the fortunes of many technology companies, including ours. And for whatever reason, way back in 2008, I think, when we first joined this quadrant, they said, oh, Liferay, they're a visionary company. They seem to know what they're talking about. They seem to be successful. We were really surprised. And people ask me all the time, it's like, how much did you pay Gartner to get in this? And we say, we didn't pay them anything. We ended up paying them later for other stuff. And maybe they got smart and they say, well, if we just put this dot here, they have to start paying us things for something. So we fell for their trick, but we got in this, and we've been getting better and better every year, and we're happy about that. But I think this market is actually now being overshadowed by all of these changes I'm talking about, right? So unless we change as a company, we're also going to be made irrelevant or obsolete. So this is how I kind of see the market that we've been in. We've been in the portal market, but we've also had CMS capabilities. A lot of our competitors used to be only the portal vendors, but now it's also like companies like Sitecore or Drupal, who's really more of a pure CMS. And they've been kind of adding more portal features, and we've been adding CMS features, right? Well, before we get into that, let's look at what we were traditionally and how we evolved. So traditionally, we were primarily an IT solution for controlling information, controlling access to systems, controlling the authoring of content, and so forth. And we really saw these systems not as a user-friendly thing, but it was just like, oh, if you have to have access to these things, make sure you put in your password and you're the right person to do it, and then we're going to give you access, right? Well, over time, what happened was the business realized that some of these system interactions are the best chances we have to have an interaction with a customer or with an employee or a partner. And we don't just want to make it hard for them to interact with the system. We want to make it easy. We want them to not just consume information, but also to provide information. And so that's where we moved from the top to the bottom, which is kind of saying, these are no longer just systems for IT to control things. These are actually systems for us to have relationships with customers. So that was good, but one thing we didn't address was that you still had a separation, really, between the two systems with regard to the relationship with the customer. So what I mean is, if you are a customer of Telefonica and you're thinking about switching to Vodafone, you might go to the Vodafone website, which is powered by a content management system. You find out some information about their products and which subscription level is the best one for you. They have a family plan that's interesting. I have 2 kids, and so I want to get telephones for all 4 people. Okay, that's good. I'm going to walk into a store and then ask them about the offers I saw on the website, and then I become a customer. After you become a customer, they ask for your email address, and then they start sending you all this email. And one of them might say, if you log into myvodafone.com, you can have access to your invoices and all of that information. And so now you go to this other system, myvodafone.com, you log in, you get all that information. But all of the things you express interest in over here, all of the things that Vodafone learned about you as a customer over here, it's really kind of separate from what they learned over here, right? What's the other problem with what's going on here? Well, I think it's actually really good that these systems went from being just an IT concern to being also a business concern. Instead of just thinking of it as access to secure systems, we're thinking about it as ways to engage customers. But the problem is that's created sort of a war between the two groups. It really kind of created an environment where IT was always the ones saying no or saying wait or saying, well, you can't do it that way, you have to do it this way. And the business saying, this is the most important thing for our customers, and if you don't do this, then we're gonna go out of business or whatever, right? And so it's created this kind of tension and this dynamic of conflict. And a lot of times, even though business has kind of shifted the priorities of these IT systems, they still got frustrated, and so they said, you know what? We're gonna go out, we're gonna find a digital agency, we're gonna find some young mobile app developer who's really talented, and we're gonna ask them to create a new website, a new mobile app, or we're gonna go to a SaaS provider and use some kind of marketing automation or a CRM tool that we don't have to go through IT, right? So not only are two of the most important parts of the business not working together, but also the business has created all of these one-off solutions that ultimately mean that there are more silos, more disconnected experiences for the customer. And the customer is kind of not really seeing all this stuff that's going on, but they're just saying, this is so confusing. I thought Vodafone is one company, but it doesn't feel like it at all, right? And if you're from Vodafone in this room, I'm just using it as an example. I don't mean that this is really true, so please don't take it the wrong way. So this is the problem that we're trying to solve with Liferay DXP. Liferay Digital Experience Platform is this new product that we launched. What I mean when I say new product is obviously a lot of the technology underlying are the open source technologies and the portal and the mobile technology that we've had already. But in terms of the philosophy and the positioning of the product in the market, Liferay DXP is our launch into this new market. And we're trying to solve the problems that I just shared with you. How can we create a platform that brings business and technology together? How can we think about the customer relationship not just as separate interactions, but as a connected journey? And how can we, even if you have these isolated touch points, learn about the customer and bring that experience into one unified experience? So this is something we announced to the world back in June. We, again, talked to some analysts and things, and they said, oh yeah, that's great. You're moving in the right direction. This is something that's really important. One thing that they said, which I think is pretty interesting, is most digital experience people are really just talking still about marketing and the prospect side, but you're one of the few vendors who's talking about the whole journey. One of the analysts at Gartner that we talked to about this said, hey, I think this is the right move for Liferay. So taking my CEO hat off and putting on my open source hat, I know many of you in the community are kind of probably confused, and they're like, hey, isn't DXP the same thing as Portal? And wait, why are you making all these changes? What is this all about? We think that this is the best way for Liferay to continue to be not only a successful business, but to be an interesting technology that the organizations you work for need, so that your investment in Liferay is going to be also interesting for them, and it's going to allow you to work on interesting projects and solutions in those organizations. But I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later, because I know, especially in the Italian community, some of our recent decisions have been very controversial, and I want to talk about that. So that's all fine and good, but the reality is DXP, if you break it down, it's still made up of very concrete things that you're all very aware of. Things like the portal, which we've renamed as Digital Enterprise, some of the mobile stuff, the document management, the collaboration, all that stuff, which we've all loved about Liferay for a long time. And then some of the new things we're developing are around how can you understand customers better, how can you manage the customer journeys better, and that's something that we're working on. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. We want to move into this DXP market. What are the things that are going to guide how we develop this product line going into the future? Well, I talked about this already, but we want to change the way we think about the platform related to the individual experiences customers have. Instead of, in the past, what we said was, use Liferay. It's a great platform. You get all this stuff out of the box. Use it to build your intranet. Use it to build your customer portal. Use it to build your website. Even use it to power your mobile apps. Now, we still want you to do all that, but what we want to do on top of that is, once you've done that, we want to see how DXP can help you bring it all together. So it's okay if you have separate customer portals, separate website. It's even okay if some of it is powered on Drupal, some of it's on Liferay. What DXP is going to try to do is to help you understand what is your customer doing and learning from each of those interactions, and how can you bring that all together into a single picture, an understanding of the relationship. So one way that I think about it is, in the past, Portal was really kind of a system for controlling access. You know, you had single sign-on, and you had authentication and permissions and all these things. And that was really about like, who you are statically determines what you can access. If you're the CEO of the company, you can access everything. If you're a manager, you can access maybe some other things. If you're a customer, you can access other things. And how we want to expand that is, it's not just who you are in the moment, it's your relationship and your behavior and all the things that we understand about you over time that changes how we interact with you. And capturing that in a systematic way is probably very challenging, but that's kind of what we're after. And so that's why even when you create all these touch points, what's less important today, I think, is that you're able to create just those individual ones, but that you understand the relationship across all of them. And so even when you build things like intranets or custom applications, we really want those things to be about how you really enhance that relationship and that journey. Okay, the second principle that is guiding the development of DXP into the future is that we don't know how all of your industries are going to change. A lot of people are afraid of the future because they don't know what it is. And so this will be my one comment about the election. The stock market, when they realized that Donald Trump was going to win the US presidency, all of a sudden the stock markets all went crazy, right? And the reason for that is because they felt with Hillary Clinton, they knew exactly what they were going to get. It doesn't matter whether they liked it or disliked it, they just knew exactly what Hillary stood for. Whereas with Donald Trump, people were just like, I have no idea if all the things he is saying are really true or if he's just saying them just to say them. And they had no idea. And so stock market people hate uncertainty, and so the markets went crazy, right? And then, you know, I think when he gave his victory speech, he said, hey, let's come together. So they were like, okay, maybe he's not as crazy as we thought. So then the stock market settled down. But I think it's the same for a lot of us. You probably have some kind of business that has been stable for a really long time, and you're very happy with that, and you don't want it to change. And when you hear about digital transformation, you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with that because it's scary. And with DXP, one of the things we're trying to do is architect your business for a future that you just don't know. I want to give an example of a company that's doing something really interesting in the fashion industry, using digital technology, but not just basically using the same business model. So I talked about the mountain of customer expectations. One of the exciting opportunities we have as businesses is not only to meet those customer expectations that they can imagine, but to go way beyond what they thought that they wanted to give them something completely new and different. So there's a company in the US, it's called Stitch Fix. And if you live in Milan or in any of the Italian cities, this is probably something that just doesn't make any sense to you why someone would want this, because you have a lot of great designers and a lot of great shopping and a lot of, obviously the fashion industry is very big here. But imagine some of the people who voted for Donald Trump. They live in the Midwest of the US. It's a very small town, less than 10,000 people. It's 2 hours away from any urban center. And the only options they have for shopping are stores like Walmart or Kmart, right? I don't know what the equivalent is in Europe, but it's kind of just very generic stuff that maybe is made in China. And so in order to do any shopping, they have to drive 2 hours, and then maybe they go to a Macy's or a JCPenney. And in the US, like, they have all these racks and racks and racks of clothes, and you have to like search through all of them, and then you have to go into a small dressing room, and it's very cramped. The overall experience is just not very, very good. So Stitch Fix, what they did is they said, what we're gonna do is we're gonna completely change the way that women in these rural, isolated towns experience shopping. What they do is you go online and you say, I don't like stripes, I really like the color black, I don't feel comfortable wearing a really, really short skirt, I really, really like navy blue, et cetera, right? And so you create that profile, and then you submit it, and then there's a human on the other side of that. They read your profile, they say, I'm gonna try this skirt over here, this blouse, maybe this sweater. I think these all work really well together. They pack it all in a box, and then they send it to you. And this happens once a month for, I think there's a $20 fee, which you don't have to pay if you keep any of the items. So they send you the 5 items, and these women whose lives are maybe a little bit not very routine, right? They're doing the same thing every day. They get this box in the mail, and they're super, super excited because they have no idea what's gonna be inside, but it's gonna be something exciting. And so they open it up, and they look at the skirt, they look at the blouse, they try it on, they do a selfie, they post it on the internet, they ask their friends, hey, what do you think of this? And some people are like, thumbs up, thumbs down. And they say, well, I'm gonna keep this one, I'm gonna keep this one, I'm gonna send these 3 back. And it doesn't stop there. So by telling the company, these are the things I like, these are the things I don't like, they're able to learn more about the customer. And so the interesting thing is each of those pieces of clothing, they have all of these attributes that they've made into data, and they learn from all of that customer data. And they have this algorithm, they have this machine learning that says, okay, she liked these, she didn't like these. And basically the company is able to learn the taste of the person from this interaction. So what happens next? The next month comes, and the stylist again is picking 5 pieces of clothing, and basically the algorithm tells the stylist, last time you picked these 5, the customer rejected these 3, so our guess is that you should choose from this group. And the stylist then chooses from that group, and then they send another 5, and this process continues. And we might not understand this as mostly men in this audience, but this is actually not just about finding something to wear for these women. It's actually an emotional experience. And there is this devoted community of people on the internet who use Stitch Fix, and they talk about how when they try these new clothes, which they weren't able to afford before, but also which they didn't have the courage to wear, and they walk into the office, and their coworkers say, wow, I love that outfit, you look amazing, then they just have this amazing emotional experience. And that's really the thing that Stitch Fix is able to deliver And that's really what we think about as digital transformation. So this is something, again, in the traditional fashion industry, we may not have had any idea that this kind of a business model is possible. It may be that the other models of the future look very different even from this, but this is part of that unknowable future that I'm talking about. Okay, the second thing is supporting both experience and operations. At Liferay, one of the things that we've faced a lot is people say, well, portals are kind of boring and nobody wants to talk about integration. All of the exciting stuff is happening in marketing and having like mobile apps and targeting content and things like that. And that was the story for maybe the last 2 or 3 years. But now a lot of companies are saying, oh, you know what? We realized that you can't just do things on the surface level without changing the guts of your company. So it's kind of an obvious analogy, but the iceberg is, you can really just concentrate on the websites and mobile apps and things like that. But if you don't change the operations of your company, then you're not going to have a true transformation. Forrester is another analyst company from the US, and one of the things they say is if you don't have integration with back-end systems, then you're not going to have a great digital customer experience. So as we develop DXP, we're keeping this in mind. And I thought a great way to think about the two sides of that coin is through a model that Mark Grannon from Forrester shared in Chicago. He talks about how there's usually an ideal customer experience that we want to achieve as companies, but that it takes not just the digital experiences on the customer-facing side, but it also takes operational excellence on the back end of the organization. And so just walking through an example, imagine again that you are, let's say, a fashion company. Let's say you're Benetton, and you wanted to improve the experience of your customers who want to shop on their mobile devices. And so you used Liferay or some other technology to make it really easy for your website to work on a mobile device. And after that, you realize that you actually want to create a native mobile app because it creates a better digital experience for the customer than just having a website. And so you create the mobile app, and you do it really quickly. But then you realize that you have some customer data from the website, and then you have some customer data from the mobile app. And so on the back end, you realize that I really need to make all of that data into one pool because I don't want to lose what I learned about my customer on the mobile app when I'm making decisions about the website. So then you have a project to unify all of that customer data. Once you do that, you realize that, hey, I know so much about my customers and I can make their lives easier by helping them find things faster on my website and my mobile app through personalized content. So instead of just showing them everything, I'm going to show them things that are related to things that they've purchased in the past. So now you're personalizing your experience, and the customers like that better. They feel like you understand them better. And so they actually do more business with your company. They shop more and they order more. And over time, you realize now that people are ordering more stuff, we have a problem in the warehouse on the fulfillment side. We're taking too long to ship these orders to our customers. And so we need to improve the service delivery by transforming the integration of our fulfillment systems and our inventory, just making that all run smoother, right? And over time, by taking these steps, both on the experience side and the operation side, you've been able to achieve better experience. Okay, so all of that is very interesting. Maybe it's very relevant to you. Maybe it's more in the distant future for some of you. But I'm pretty sure that one day you're going to have to ask yourself these questions of how am I going to deal with the digital transformation challenge that we have. And when you do that, you're probably going to have to decide which vendors, I think it'll be more than one, it's not just going to be Liferay or just IBM or just Adobe, but you're going to have a relationship with many different vendors in order to achieve these goals. So I want to make a case for why you might choose Liferay above and beyond any of the other companies that we compete with. And one thing that's probably interesting to especially the technology folks in the room is that at Liferay, we don't buy companies. We don't intend to sell our company, which I'll talk about later, but we also don't buy companies. If you look at most of the vendors that have entered in this digital experience platform market, they've had all of these acquisitions. So great technology that Adobe or IBM then buys the company. Maybe they try to use the technology, maybe they just want the customers, but they have trouble getting it to work together, or they're not actually supporting that technology long term. So that's actually a problem, because if you're trying to do transformation, you're changing the way your business works, and that takes a lot of energy and attention. You don't want to have to be stuck figuring out why your marketing automation software doesn't talk to your customer relationship software, and spend a lot of time integrating those things. So Liferay, although we don't always have all of the features that the other vendors have, the things we do have, we built it. And when I say we built it, I mean some of the very people in this room have built it, or it's the people who are sitting in Madrid or Brazil or in LA, the same people who have been building that software sometimes for 12, 13, 14 years, right? So that's something very different about Liferay compared to the other companies. All right, this is the part where I'm gonna put my heart on my sleeve for you guys. So the other thing is that we are an open source company. And some of you guys may have a tomato in your pocket and you want to throw it at me because you're very upset about, the clustering decision we made earlier this year, for example. And you might say, you guys are not open source anymore. You're just like all the other American companies that talked about being open source. Oh, you're changing. What is this corporate venue? We're not even in Milan anymore. Everything feels different. Who is this Andrea guy? I never saw him before. He's wearing a suit. So it might feel like, oh, Liferay's changing, or we're a different company. And the only thing I can say for you, our open source community here in Italy, is that we're the same people. I'm the same guy that stood here last year. With the venue, some things happened. It was very last minute. We ended up having to choose this one for a lot of good benefits that, meant that we couldn't get one of the ones that we did in the past. One thing is, it's very warm in here. I remember being very cold in the past Italy symposiums, and so it's nice being warm. But we're also like way out of the center of Milan, so pros and cons. But we're still the same company. We're still open source. I don't know if any of the people who I was discussing this issue with on the blog, Aristide Cittadino. Oh, okay. Hello. And Antonio Musara, I don't know if you're here. There's one more guy. Francesco Santoro. No, he's not here. Okay. So you guys all let me know what you think about our decision, and I'm listening. And we are having internal discussions about how to address this point. It really is something that we're trying to do to balance the best of the needs of the community and the business and all that, but it's not final, right? Just like in the US, you have an election every 4 years. One thing can happen, and then 4 years later it could change. Hopefully it won't take that long, but I am trying to think of a way to do a better balance there, to not make you guys feel like we've taken something away. But my point is that if you trust us, not just as a vendor, but as individual people, then I hope that you will continue to have a relationship with us and believe that through dialogue and conversation, we'll find the best path forward. At the end of the day, my vision for Liferay is to gather people who have the same values and priorities in life, to build a company that, of course, makes a profit and is a very, very successful business, but also through our business is able to make an impact in the world. And I do realize that one of the ways we're able to do that here in Italy is to make great technology available to some of the independent integrators or the developer enthusiasts who maybe you do a project for a small Italian company who wouldn't be able to afford these big name brand technology vendors. So I still very much believe in that. I want to do that. I'm just trying to figure out how to do that without not addressing the problems that I talked about in my blog. But if you're more on the commercial side, if you're here as an enterprise customer, I hope that you will also support us in this. And if we want to talk about sort of what's in it for us. So first of all, it's great that you might support a company that has this kind of vision, but you might say, well, at the end of the day, we need good technology, and that's what matters the most. I believe that people who are passionate about the company that they work for do the very best work. And I think one of the reasons why we're able to attract talented people who create great software, who could easily go work at Google or Facebook or something else, is because they do believe that the work that they're doing and the company they're working for is doing something meaningful in the world. So please partner with us, invest in us, and I will do my very best to make sure that that investment is worthwhile. So with that, I want to say thank you again for being here. People I mentioned, come talk to me. Tell me more about yourself. Help me understand your situation. That's why I'm here. I'm going to be here all day, and I will be around, so please don't hesitate to come talk to me about what you're experiencing in this market. Thank you very much. I have great affection and love for all of you, and I hope that we can have a great day together. Thanks.